What is up, everybody? FlutterFlow 5.0 just hit us, and I'm very excited to present to you the amazing features that came along with it. Well, in this video, I'm going to be covering every single thing that was mentioned, and also we are going to walk through how to use some of these things. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and also turn on your notification bell because that really helps the channel to grow. Without wasting any time, let's just dive right straight into the video. So first of all, I'd like to highlight very briefly about the FFDC 2024, where that took place, and it was amazing. I mean, FlutterFlow wowed us and impressed us again as an app building platform. So if you have not watched that video, head over to the FlutterFlow YouTube channel and you should be able to see that. I mean, it's very interesting to watch, so be sure to watch that out, to watch the video. And now on to the features. One thing you have to know is, as of the time of recording this video, FlutterFlow has not released like every single thing that they promised for 5.0. So they'll keep on rolling out as the week comes by. So yeah, so far, this is the first push that was given to us, and I'm just digging deep into it. And I'd like to point out, like, I'm very impressed to what FlutterFlow has done this time. This time they pushed out the release alongside documentation. I mean, that is underrated, but it's very important to have releases like that. It really helps the users go through everything. Anyways, that's a lot of talking. Let's get into actual reviewing those features. Before digging deep into the release note, I would like to mention the new look of the website, the FlutterFlow website. So if you head over to flutterflow.io, the website really looks very interesting. And I think before the release date, before FFDC, I saw, if you look here, production. So it was like how I could see, like, okay, something has been done relating to a new feature. But yeah, the website, they have a new look, and I think it's very impressive, very interactive. Now for the FlutterFlow updates, the 5.0 updates, will be able to cover development environments, how you can specify variables and separate your development environment from production. New gesture detector action triggers, like for example, we can now move this thing around, how you can tie actions to move these things around, right? Now we have this other one called listening for keyboard pressed on events. So we have these three items, and if we press on Alt Shift N, it's going to create a new item. If we select an item, I'll press on Alt Shift D, it's going to delete that item, right? And we have a widget builder as parameters. Like these two widgets that you are seeing here is being passed as a parameter to a component that is made visible on our page. That is very powerful. They'll have libraries where you can publish libraries into the community or share with your friends to use, branch commits, and other improvements. So let's head over to the release note here on the community. So we have, first thing, we have development environments. Now for development environments, it means that you'll be able to create like environments that you're developing. Let's take, for example, you have production, development, staging, or any other environment, and you'll be able to tie some variables based on that environment. And I think that's very important. Like take, for example, you're building an application and you want to have a separate environment for your production app and a separate environment for development, just so you don't mix data. That is very helpful, super helpful. And one interesting thing they mentioned is you'll be able to tie in Firebase projects based on that development environment. So that is very cool. They have not done yet for Supabase, so let's look at it real quick. I mean, back here I have my application, my FlutterFlow update application that I have. If you want access to the application, yeah, you can write me and I'll share with you everything that I've covered throughout every FlutterFlow release. So here you head over to here you see currently by default every application is under production. So the environment here is under production, and you have access to this development environment. You see development environment under settings. So if you head over here to settings, and then you see here dev environments. So we currently are under production. I can create something, say development. Let me create an environment called development, right? It's just as easy as that. And then I can create that environment and then also add a value that I want to share between those two environments. So right now under development, if I go to my Firebase, I do not have any application link, any Firebase application linked, right? But under my production environment, I have my Firebase application linked. And when you change between environments, up here you are going to see the environment they are currently working on. So development, it switches there, production, it switches here. And now for regarding development environments, I'm just going to click here and I'll say let me add something like API URL. For example, if I'm calling an API and I want the URL to be different for development and I want it to be different for production, I can specify that here. So API URL, and it's a string, I'm going to create that, and this is the environment. This is the variable. So the variable for production, I can do something like this: API URL for production, and then for development, I can specify the URL that I want to use for development. So it can be dev.whateverthing.com. And when I come over here to say API calls or just around my application, I have access to that particular environment based on whatever I want to use it for. So let me take, for example, if I come here to API call, let me just say I add a variable here. Let it be something I can specify the variable, right? It can be an environment variable and then the API URL whatsoever, but just know that that value is now available and it's going to be dynamic based on the environment that you are working on. So I think that is very, very useful, and it's going to help developers a lot to debug, especially me. Let me know, just like, I don't know about you, but this is going to be very, very amazing. That's just a little bit about how development environment works. Again, if you want me to do a detailed video about this, I can do. If you want me to do a detailed video about any of these new features, I can also do that. By the way, there's documentation too about development environment, so be sure to read that out, and it's very, very useful. Be sure to just check out the documentation. This is one thing that FlutterFlow has done amazing this time, releasing features with documentation. So the next thing we have is new gesture detection action triggers. So there are over 50 plus new action triggers, and all of that has been documented, guys. All of that has been documented. I was privileged to just read through all the documentation before doing this video, and it is very, very detailed and super helpful. So there are a lot of new actions that you can have available. There are a lot of them, so we are just going to go through, and yeah, there's also specification about the life cycle of those actions, so you can read that, like when an action starts happening, sorry, when a trigger starts happening, when it's executing, and when it finishes executing. So FlutterFlow has exposed that to us. Into my application here, let's go over to this page and demonstrate that. So what I'm going to attempt to do, I've not done it before, I'm just learning about this, but by the way, let's look at some of the actions. So on page load, for example, we now have interesting actions like, look at on page load, on phone shake, on shortcut press, right? We are going to talk about shortcut very soon, but this is an example of an action that is available. And then if you take, for example, we just include let me add a container here, sorry, a column and then a container. You're going to see more actions being available for you to use. And if I click on this container, the container is currently selected. If I click on this container and I go to the action panels, you're going to see a lot of other actions. Look at this. Again, on secondary long press, on tab, or there are a lot of actions that you should check out, guys. This is going to revolutionize the way we build applications. So yeah, and then also on text, if you add a text, there are a lot of actions just spread across each widget. Be sure to check that out. So if I click on this text and I come here over to the action panel and I open it up, you're going to see on tap, on the press, on whatsoever, on first press, like these actions are still available on that particular widget. So what I'm going to demonstrate real quick here is I want to simulate like us dragging a widget around, right? So I'm going to have a container and then we're going to be dragging it around our screen to just see how it works. So let me put together the UI real quick and then I'm going to get into explaining what I've done. So real quick, I have this dot at the center, and what I want to do is just to demonstrate, like if we try to drag this dot around, let us animate the way it moves, right, from one position to another, and it should be able to move around the screen. I don't know how successful I'm going to be with this implementation, but this is just me trying out this new feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create values for both the X and Y axis of the location of this document, of that particular container. So I'm going to say current X, which is a double to denote the particular location that this dot is, and then I'm going to do current Y to denote the particular Y axis of that bubble, and I'm going to save that. Then I'm going to come here over to animations. When I click on this container, this round dot that we have, over to animation, and I'm going to do on action trigger animation, and I'm just going to do slide, right? Let me do slide for it to slide like from one location to another. Is in the duration, whatsoever. So for horizontal slide, the initial position should be where it is, the final position should be where I want it to go. So as we know, horizontal is the x-axis, so I'm going to do final position to be this page state that I have created before, page state, and I'll say current x, confirm. A UI builder value, okay, let me do 0. Okay, a UI builder value. All right, it needed something here. So let me write 0. So 0.0 by default and then 0. So something like this. Okay, cool. So we want it to move to the final position X, like in the X axis, wherever we have dragged it to, and then to the final position Y to, I'm going to do the same thing to use the page state variable that will create for current Y, and I'm going to do 0.0 and also 0, something like that. Confirm, right? So if we are dragging now, FlutterFlow has exposed us, like we can know where the user is currently being tapped, or where sorry, a widget is being tapped, like the actual position, not just the widget, the position as in the X and Y coordinates on the particular screen. So we're going to make use of that to be able to drag this circle around. I just hope it works, but anyways, yeah, and that is done. Now on this container itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here on the action tab and open it. I'm going to do on there are so many actions, right? I'm going to select one of these actions that is going to do all of these things on horizontal drag. I think horizontal drag, on horizontal drag update. Therefore, the idea is there's an action called on horizontal drag. If I search here, sorry, by the site, and I say horizontal, if you are doing horizontal drag, like if you are dragging to this horizontal, then something should happen in that horizontal direction, right? It's tracking that drag in that particular horizontal direction. So there's horizontal start, there's horizontal update, there's horizontal cancel, or whatever thing. Now, on horizontal and on vertical, I'm going to do both horizontal and vertical. So if it's dragging to the vertical direction, update this widget. If it's dragging to the horizontal direction, update this widget. I don't know how those things are going to play, but let us try out. So on horizontal drag update, so if it is being updated, what I want to do is I am going to update the page state. So I'm going to do something like update page states. I'm going to update both the X and Y, current X and current Y. Now I want to pass exact values of the X coordinate of that particular user's placement, like where the user is currently be dragging. So I'm going to do set value, and right here we have ability for this gesture detector. This is a new feature. Global X is the X coordinate relative to the screen, therefore like relative to the entire screen of the device, whether desktop or mobile. And then local X position is relative to the container or the widget that the trigger is being listened upon, right? So if we have a container of say with 200 and then we are somehow in the middle, like trying to drag from the middle, it is going to be the global X position is going to be somewhere around like 100 due to the positioning based on that widget. And then delta X is the current position in the X direction, like the amount that the particular whatever thing, that pointer or the user's action is moving on that particular screen. So we're going to make use of the delta X position. So I'm updating the current X to be delta X, and then current Y to be is also going to be delta Y. So I'm going to set value and gesture detector delta Y. So we have done that. Now, I'm just thinking about something. Remember, if we are currently at position 0, 0, then we'll move to 100. It's just going to appear at 100, right? It's not going to actually, like, this is what I'm thinking. We need to look for a way to, like, then if we move now from 100 to about 200, then it's just going to actually skip. We need a way to increment it to show, like, it is moving in this direction since we are listening for horizontal drag, and horizontal is going to keep increasing or decreasing based on that horizontal dimension, like the x-axis. So what I want to do is probably like just do like a common code expression that adds the new delta x value to the previous value of that our page state. I think that's going to make more sense. Again, you can read the documentation if this is sounding complex, but I'm just thinking why I'm doing this, so I don't know which one is going to work. All right, so check this out. This is what I have done. I have just had I have this thing, an argument called previous, which is the current index, like the page state that we already have, and then current, which is the delta x. So it's going to add like from 0, add the new value that we have from the value position that where we are. If we move to another place, add our location where we are to the previous one, just so that transition is smooth. I think this should be something, and I'm confirming. I'll click on confirm, and I'm also going to play, and I think I need to do the same thing for delta y. But one thing to understand is on horizontal drag is only going to happen in the horizontal direction. Let me just add this action to for delta y. I don't know, maybe it will do something, but let me just add the same code expression for it. before y value. So I've done the same thing, but in this case now I've passed the y value, so delta y. Then I'll click on confirm. Now that we have updated our both values of x and y, let us now run our widget animation. So I'm going to click on add an action. Then I say animate, right, to animate our widget. So widget animation, and then we have our container. Select our container. So this is a widget I want to animate. Now that is on horizontal drag update, right? So I'm going to add another action on what is it called, it on vertical drag update. Therefore, whether it's going up or down, I'm going to add an action to it too. So I'm going to click here on, let me just search on vertical drag update. This is it, and we still want this similar thing to happen too. So if you are going horizontal direction, either front or back, it goes the same. If you are going up or down, it goes the same. So I'm just going to copy this action chain, and I'm just going to paste it down here. I think it's the same thing, so I don't need to modify any other thing. And this should work, or at least we should have some movement happening. I'm just going to start a test mode and let's test it out. Alright guys, so test mode is taking a very long time to come up, and what I decided to do is to start up my dev mode, like local run, and this is what we have here. So I'm going to come here, upload September 24th. I'll click here to open this one, and let's actually demonstrate it here. This is my local run, and they'll have new gesture detection. I just hope this thing works. Let's go. Gesture detection. So we have our widget. So if it works appropriately, when I drag to the right, the widget should go, that container should move like that. If I go up, it should move. If I go this way, it should go. So let's try it out. Oh, okay. If you can see my mouse, I'm moving to the right, it is going down. Let me move to the left. Now, if you click anywhere else, it's not going to trigger that action, right? If you try to drag anywhere else, it's not going to trigger. So let me drag to the left and see where it goes. I'm dragging to the left, it's instead going up. Anyways, let me drag down. It is going to the right. If I drag up, it is going to the left, right? So I think this thing is messed up. Oh. I don't know what is happening. Okay. Well, we're moving the container. I don't know. I can spend more time on how to use this thing and make a video if you want. I can spend more time on how to use a lot of these tools, but this is just the idea of what we want to implement. Maybe after this video, I'm going to fix that up, and yeah, if you have access to this code, you're going to see like what I finally did. Now, one thing to note is regarding that particular page, the action, you see that like now that we've left that page, that widget is still in this location and we are no more dragging. So what we can try to do is do something like probably like when we've left the page, or when we have when we are done dragging or whatever thing, there's an action for it, and it is called say for example on horizontal drag, maybe terminated or something like that. Horizontal, if I do horizontal drag n, for example, if that dragging as n, I want to return that value back to its initial location, like 0 0 as it was before. So you can tie all of that, and that is gesture detections for you guys. And there's a lot of other actions, right? I just decided to demonstrate this one so that we can see how it actually works and then have a hang of it. Guys, just a reminder, there's a bunch of these triggers that you should check out, like on long press, on pan. You can probably like do something like zoom into an image or zoom out. Like there are a bunch of them. You should definitely check them out. Can make a video if you want me to. So next up, we are going to head over to the next feature, which we have listen for keyboard press events. Right now, one useful thing that you have to note is keyboard press events are only available on, they're not available on widgets, right? They're only available on a page. So on page actions, they're not available on widget actions. So if we come here, like for example, this page, and then we open here, we are going to see this new action call on shortcut press, right? So if we click on it, and then it's going to prompt us to enter the shortcuts that I want to listen to. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to do something like, well, press Control N or Control Shift N, it should create a new item. When you press Control Shift Delete, it should delete an item, something like that. And you have to note, like if you are trying to use like keyboard shortcuts, for example, if you have a shortcut on a page, and then if you have the shortcut to be something like E, and then that page happens to have an input field that you are trying to input E, FlutterFlow also has a way that you can like neglect that trigger that shortcut not to execute, and let the actual value E should be entered in that input field. That's why it's useful to do like combination of keys when you're doing like these shortcut triggers or whatsoever. So in that case, I'm just going to like build a simple UI that has a list of items, and then we'll press on Ctrl Shift N. It's going to create a new item, and then we'll press on Ctrl Shift Delete. It's going to delete the item. So give me a second. Let's build the UI together. Alright guys, so I have this interface, right? What I've done here is I've simply created a page state called items with a list of string called item 1, item 2, item 3, and here I have another page state called selected item, which is just a string which is going to denote the item that is currently being selected. And here we have our grid view that generates children from the list of those items. So what I'm going to do is on this page state, on this particular page itself, I'm going to tie an action here like open, and I'm going to do on shortcut press, and the shortcut that I want to initiate is Control Shift N, like something like this. I'm going to say Control Shift N. As you can see, when this shortcut is being pressed, what do I want to do? I just simply want to add a new item to that list, right? So I'm going to create here, and I'll say state management, update page state. What page state do I want to update? The list of string or these items, and I'll say add to list the new item. I'm going to do something like combine text, just so it's unique, and I'm going to do combine text item space, and I'm just going to do current time, right? So global property states current time. Let's just be something like that, as simple like that. So this item is going to be added each time Control Shift N is pressed. Now I want to also update a page state. If you click on a particular item, then it should update like that item is what is currently being selected. So I'm going to click here like on this card, and I'm going to do like on tap. When it's tab, what I want to do is state management. I'll update the page state for the selected item to be the current item that is being clicked on, item value, confirm, and that should have our interface available for us. So I'm going to restart or hot reload, and let's see how it goes. Then we have listen for keyboard press events, and if I click on Control Shift N, so that's a shortcut to open a new tab apparently on Chrome. So I may need to change that shortcut. Let me do Alt Shift N, for example, and let's see what difference it's going to make. Alt Shift N, like that. Perfect. Then paste. They should do it. And let me just do like a simple color change on this card, right? That denotes which item is currently selected. If I can do something like the color to be dynamic, like let's do a dynamic value if conditional, if item V is equal to the selected item, page state selected item, right? Let's just give it a different color of, say, tertiary, so know that item is what is selected, else have the secondary color. This is just like for UI and visibility purposes, right? While we're at it, let me just set this thing, the action to also delete. So I'm just going to come here on page state and open, on the page itself, and I'm going to also add another shortcut on shortcut press, and this time we're going to do Alt Shift D. Yes, like that. So I'm going to click on that, confirm, and I'm going to add an action which says remove state variable update page state, and we want to remove from this list. So remove from list this selected item. So in use case, you may want to, like in actual development, you want to like handle like error cases. Say for example, if an item is not selected, then probably display an error says that an item has not been selected or whatsoever thing. Yeah, but that's just how you can use like these keyboard shortcuts. Listen for keyboard press events. So if we select, you can see the item that was selected is being clicked. Now on the page itself, if I press that Alt Shift N, we should have a new item created. Item with that whatsoever thing, the current date. Alt Shift N again, we should have a new item created. And since item 1 is currently selected, if we press Alt Shift D, it should delete it. Alt Shift D, nothing should happen because we've not handled the case for if an item is not selected. If I want to delete this one, remember it ends, the timestamp ends with 62. Alt Shift D, and it has been deleted. So this shortcut can be very, very useful when you are doing a lot of things. I'm just going to add a note here for what the shortcut does. We have the next thing is Widget Builder as parameter. Now this is a lot of this one has a lot of details. I'm just going to touch it briefly, but I'm going to make a subsequent video on more detailed about Widget Builder as a parameter. So right now what it says is this allows you to dynamically substitute in widgets on your component widget tree. For example, specifying a custom input field. I'll show you the design below. So what I'm going to do real quick is here I'm going to create an input field for as a component. So I'm going to create here, click on new component, create a blank component, and I'll say input, create component. I'm just going to demonstrate how this is useful. Then inside this input, I'm going to right? Our text field like this. This is our normal text field. I can duplicate this thing, duplicate component, and I'll say instead of input copy, I'll say drop down. And instead of using a normal text field, I'm going to say this should be a drop down. Like I have components for all of these things. So this should be a drop down, something like that, as simple as that. So have our input and drop down. Right now, I'm going to create a new component that is going to put together this thing. Let's take, for example, in some cases, you want to use just an input field to receive value from a user. In some cases, you need both input and drop down field. So I'm going to create here like a new component, and I'll say form fields, for example. Let me just call it like that. I'm very bad at naming things. And now here in our component parameters, we can pass in input, as in what input type do you want to specify. And then I'm going to do something as now there's this thing called what do you call it, widget builder. As you can see, we really had action before, but now we have widget builder, and that is perfect. So here, if we want to display that particular widget that I've selected, FlutterFlow allows us to do, when you click here to add an item, you come here under this section for widget builders. It is not visible like component parameter. You cannot use it like that. It is visible on this other section. Come here on this component section, then you see input. That's where the parameter is available. There you can click and bring it in. So that is how you can pass this thing as a parameter. Now for the preview, you can also set a preview. Right, let me see, widget builder UI properties. So for the preview, I want to use this particular input as a preview. Now back on my page itself, when I want to use this component called form fields, like the component initially itself that has a list of form fields. So if I want to add that component, this is the component here. It's called form fields. Let me search for form fields. So if I bring this widget here, it is just showing that text field because of that preview that I have set in. Now, as for the input type that it receives, the value is called input. I can specify which component that I want to pass in. So I can pass in drop down, I can pass in text, I can even pass in a lot of other components that I want to send inside. But for a fact, I know that I want to send it just an input. So an input is going to be available there. Let me duplicate this. For the next one, I want to pass in, what we call this thing, drop down. So this is a way of us passing widget builders into component. Again, I'm going to do a detailed video on how you can build like full-fledged UI using these functionalities, but this is just for demonstration purposes. And if we reload this, we are going to see real time that our widget have been passed into that component, this form field component, and then we can dynamically specify what we want to be visible inside. I can still duplicate this and pass in some other thing, right? So if I pass something instead of this drop down, let me pass in a person card. Look at how that is going to be displayed. And then I need to pass in, like, if there's an object, if there's any required parameters, I can pass those. So that's how you can pass in your components. I think this is very, very useful, and use them as parameters in other components. So be sure to look out for that video. I'm going to be dropping it very soon, and yeah, let's demonstrate that and see it in action. So let me say it's an employee. Look at this, is very interesting. You can pass in values like a whole component itself. Oh goodness. I'm going to, yeah, let's try it out. So this is what we have here. All right, so I'm going to go back and widget builder as parameters, and we have our text field and our drop down. This is like thinking about the fact that this page is being constructed using, I don't even know how to express myself, but I think this is very, very powerful. Like, take for example, if you go on a website and you have the navigation bar, have the sidebar and whatnot, you can just have those like a single page. Oh goodness, there are so many possibilities. I don't even know how to put it. I see myself using this a lot. I don't know about you, but I think this is just like amazing. FlutterFlow has done a lot this time, and passing a navbar, passing a sidebar, or specifying whatsoever thing you want to show in a particular page as just passing components. Guys, that is powerful. Again, just look out. I'm going to be using this a lot, or make a video about it in more detail how you can use this in like a real world scenario, but this is just like a demonstration, and I'm so excited to have to try this. The next thing we have is libraries. Now you can now create and publish libraries in FlutterFlow resources, that you can then import into multiple projects over FlutterFlow. So this is very huge. Like, a while back, I've been thinking about, like, you know how I have material designs, or you have like design libraries on Figma, like you can have a structure of a button and various ways in which you can craft your button to be displayed. I was thinking of probably like building a whole application like initially, then publishing on the marketplace that people can copy just components that are pre-designed, like something like cards or pricing But this libraries is a huge change. Like people that run agencies, you can just have like predefined things. This doesn't just cut across UI elements. You can also do like custom code, custom function, custom actions. You can also do API calls. You can have like app states and end norms whatsoever. You can just like merge all of that and create a whole library that I can reuse. Take for example, I can have a standard way that my login is. I can have like flat buttons, rounded buttons, or whatsoever thing. A cat that is flat, round. I can have my all my calls to ChatGPT and just like bundling all of that as a library. Now FlutterFlow said they are going to probably be making, they are going to in the future make ways for you to publish a library. Now you can convert a whole project to library. And one best practice when you are preparing libraries is to have your typographies and whatnot specified, and every element that you use on the library page should be reading from. Take for example here, if we come on this container, it should just be reading from whatever thing they have specified in this theme settings, right? So it's good, like the properties of your widgets or whatnot should read directly from there, so that if somebody imports that library into their project, your properties they have set should not override. But if it's not specified, then it's going to be overwritten. By default, FlutterFlow use like the theme widget styling. Okay, so let's see how we can publish a library. So I'm just going to head over here. It says you come over your settings. They say publish as library. Then you can see like the version. And one good thing is it has commit history. So if at one point I need to make a modification, I can also make a modification to my entire library and then commit that change. And anybody that is already using that library can have access to that recent change, right? So I'm going to do something like ff updates by Nocode solutions, and I'm going to commit. Okay, commit message. I'm going to say first commit, just something simple like that. I don't know what this is going to do, but now this I'm publishing this as a library. I think I have secrets here like OpenAI keys and whatnot. FlutterFlow says there's going to be a way to set like library values that you can pass in the future. Now the desktop app just crashed, as you guys can see. The desktop app just crashed. I don't know why that happened, but yeah, let me restart it. So I'm not going to push further regarding to that, but you've seen how you can publish your own application as a library, and so that you can share within your team or maybe friends or whoever needs it. And if you want to use a library that is available, you come over here onto project dependencies, right? Then you can add dependency. You can add a library as a dependency. This is going to import all the custom code, all the UI elements, or the actions or whatsoever, and it's going to bring them into your project as a new library. And then you can even move along the like release versions, like the versions of that library. Like if somehow you happen to use a feature or say a recent update and it's breaking or it's conflicts with the package I have in your project, you can downgrade and go back. And so that is very powerful. Feel free to check out the documentation. FlutterFlow has done a lot this time, and there are even some FAQs there. You can check it out, and it is very useful. Trust me. I'm going to publish a design library with FlutterFlow to the marketplace when it's available. Anyways, that is cool. I think libraries are only available for paid plan. That's what you have to note. I think so on the pro plan. I think so. That's what I read in the documentation or something like that. Since libraries make use of commit messages, and committing is only available on the pro plan. So I think that's what they try to explain in the documentation. So if you're on a free account, you'll not be able to publish a library. I think you can probably use it. I don't know, but yeah, be sure to check the documentation. Okay, now the next thing we have on the list is branch commits. Now initially, if you are working with branches, I don't know most if you have dealt with that, but we are currently on the main branch, right? So if you click on the branch, you are currently on the main branch. I have just a single branch. So what I can do is I can create a new branch. Let me say dev, create a new branch, and I'll call it dev, and I'm creating from this parent branch. So FlutterFlow has just like, look at how this interface is. If you've used branching before, or this is a branching feature, it was not like this. It was not like this. So this is a commit message or the commit source whatsoever, and all of this I can create the branch, the new branch, and I have my dev branch. Now if I make a change and I want to commit that change, I have access to write a commit message. I think that is very powerful. So if I make something like include a text in the center here, and I want to commit that change and merge it back into main, it allows me to set a commit message, and that's the new feature. So I'm not interested in that. I'm going to switch back to my main branch and work directly from there. Now that is how you can use commit message, and there's more visibility regarding to that. A commit is essentially a name or a snapshot of your project at a particular point in time, and you can save changes. In each commit stores a record of what has been modified. It serves as a version history. During FFDC, Layer promised on like, okay, they understand like people are having issues like trying to merge conflicts. Like when you are trying to merge changes, the interface to do that is not very appealing. So they promise to probably make that much more easier. And that's something we're looking up to. Now, the next features we have are like other improvements, like fix issues with Xcode 16. I've not had opportunity to try this out, so I still see some people complaining in the community or under this release note. People are complaining about that. Fix issue Google sign in on Windows. Yeah, on the Windows desktop app, each time you sign in with Google, sometimes it locks you out and you have to sign in again. You may try to initiate the sign in button, the sign in action, but nothing happens. Now, fix issue animation delay and duration. Yeah, this is noticeable. API variables can be set from app state variables and constants. Now, this is something to check out. It is very interesting. So if you come over to the API sections and okay, now we can specify values like define default values here from constants or environmental variables. And I think this is super helpful in case like you're developing and you really want to just set say an API key or a value from your app state. You don't have to pass it from the front like when you are building the UI. You can just do it directly from here through this API configuration tab. So that is interesting. And next thing we have improve UI for scene component definition and widget property panel. Well, I don't know. I'm going to discard this. I don't know how to visibly test that, but I'm going to like just show out some new changes I have to this interface. So we have adding ability to search for data types and now throughout the product. Yeah, this is very cool. Right, to search for data type or enum throughout the project, that is being demonstrated. Like take for example, I can actually search like if I want to define this value, let's say we have something like jokes, I can actually search for this like this. Let me see an enum type that we have. Do we have any enums? We have user type. Okay, so I can actually search for user type and it's going to bring out even the values of these enums, as you can see. Or if I search for admin, it is going to bring out this admin value from that user type of the enum specific that we have. So this is an improvement. It was not available before. The next thing we have AI tooling. FlutterFlow is promising to release new AI tooling for like page generation or page completion. And also we have this magic cursor that does amazing things. I have a video about that. I just posted a short, I think it's a short video that demonstrating that about what they did at FFDC. So you can join a wait list to actually try it out. I already joined the wait list. And what they are promising is going to be attached up here. Like we are going to have it up here on this place that they call FlutterFlow AI tooling. Now they have just improved component generation and page creation like models a little bit. It's still not very impressive. Well, but it does much more better as compared to how it has been before. Now subsequently there'll be like sketch to UI, like you can sketch and they have a UI generated for you, or you can have page completion, like you can start designing a page and then you just prompt the AI to complete the page design for you, and also even tie the actions. That's what Cursor AI is all about. So I think that's very interesting. And other features they're working on include the VS Code extension. Now this VS Code extension is going to make ability for you to edit your custom code, like custom function, custom actions, and custom widgets on VS Code. Like you can actually edit the code and then push it back to FlutterFlow. Enhance super-based integration. Hopefully they're going to bring something interesting here. Incorporating libraries into the marketplace. This is what I mentioned. Supporting development environment and integrations, right? So for the section of integrations, like this section down here, that we have something like super-based and all the like, they should also be able to have like development environment specified for all of this. We have making every widget property dynamic. That would be so amazing. Like some widgets right now are not very dynamic in all cases. Improve performance. This is very needed, especially like web published app, like when you publish an app to the web. And enhance branch merging experience. This is what I mentioned, like Leah mentioned, and they're also going to be working on that. Now just some improvement of the user interface, like some things I want to point out. Like we now have here, when you hover over this section, you have your project ID that you can copy, the FlutterFlow version, the Flutter version that is currently using, the project ID, the project name, and also what environment they are currently working on. I think that's a unique improvement of the interface. Now down here over to settings, project dependencies now have all your dependencies that the project is using listed here, and you can easily just add one here and use. I think this is This is going to help like streamline development. Like you can have a single position where you can manage all your dependencies and their versions, so that if there's any conflicts, you can just resolve that easily. And this is where you can also add like FlutterFlow libraries. Okay, cool. Now we have dev environments, we've already seen that. And if I come over here to in our action editor, you can see like they have this. Now I'm not really a big fan of this drop down way of showing like all of these actions that are available. I know they probably changed it this way because like with the new release of the new 50 action triggers, so this way it's not very good. I think there's a better way that it can be displayed. Well, it's good like when you select an action trigger, then the rest can be added like this, but we need visibility more. Like we need more visibility on the actions that are available. I don't know how they can improve of that, but that's something to consider. I think this is just like all about the improvement of the user interface. Now for the FlutterFlow updates, the 5.0 updates, we'll be able to cover development environments, how you can specify variables and separate your development environment from production. New gesture detector action triggers, like for example, we can now move this this thing around, how you can tie actions to move these things around, right? Now we have this other one that we've covered called listening for keyboard pressed on events. So we have these 3 items, and if we press on Alt Shift N, it's going to create a new item. If we select an item and we press on Alt Shift D, it's going to delete that item, right? And we have a widget builder as parameters. Like these 2 widgets that you are seeing here is being passed as a parameter to a component that is made visible on our page. That is very, very powerful. They'll have libraries where you can publish libraries into the community or share with your friends to use, branch commits, and other improvements. I think these are like some of the key highlights for this FlutterFlow 5.0. Let me know which feature you are possibly interested in, or which you are most excited about. I'm anxiously waiting for the Visual Studio Code extension, like to actually test it out and then edit custom code. I think that's going to be very helpful, since I help a lot of you guys in the community with custom code. It's going to really make the job much more easier. Yeah, let me know which feature you're most interested about or excited, and I'll be making subsequent videos detailed, especially on things like using widget builder as a parameter, and probably like the gesture navigations or whatever thing. I'll be making more videos about that. Let me know if you have any specific topic, and yeah, be sure to make use of the buttons below. Thank you very much.